Welcome to the Be Bold podcast. I'm Beth Whitman. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Be Bold podcast. I am back from Ireland, and you may have noticed that you didn't get a podcast episode last week. That happens on occasion when I'm traveling or I'm otherwise preoccupied with, work or life. You know how it goes. Anyway, I'm here more or less every week bringing you new conversations with courageous and inspirational women. I personally always feel inspired, and I hope that you do as well. There's always some gem or nugget of information that I take away from these great conversations. Before I tell you about today's episode, I want to mention that I will be in Santa Fe as well as in New York City and in northern New Jersey in June. And although Santa Fe is a tour and I'll be in New York and New Jersey visiting family and friends, I'll also be recording some podcast episodes in all of those locations. So if you know anyone in Albuquerque, Santa Fe, New York City, or North Jersey that I should be recording with, let me know, or let that person know, and they can fill out a submission form on the Be Bold podcast website. I'd love to maximize my time in each of these locations and have great conversations with these ladies. Speaking of which, great ladies, Jean Thompson is my guest today. Jean is the owner and CEO of Seattle Chocolate Company. Yum, right? I had a little head slap moment recently when I was stocking up on chocolates to bring as gifts for my guides and other people in Ireland. And I was reminded by a lovely little note on the back of the packaging that this is a woman-owned company, and it's right here in Seattle, obviously. So I reached out to Jean, and she was gracious enough to sit down with me and tell me her story and about how an earthquake was what led her to being the head of this wonderfully delicious company. As the owner of Seattle Chocolate for 16 years now, Jean still brings an amazing amount of enthusiasm and excitement to running the company. And in this conversation, she talks about how she continues to think about how to be innovative and disruptive in an industry that has, well, it's not exactly stagnant, and that's my word, but certainly it's been viewed one particular way over the years, and she wanted people to see chocolate in a different way, and she gets into those specifics as we talk. She also reflects on how she questioned her own abilities at running the company when the recession hit and sales fell flat, but she kept moving forward, and she came out the other side of things on top, and other chocolate companies, meanwhile, they went under. What came out of that time was JCOCO, and it's a slightly higher-end chocolate with a philanthropic arm that has, to date, provided 2.7 million meals in just the past 5 years. And JCOCO is another brand of chocolate that's still part of Seattle Chocolate. It all goes together. We wrapped up the conversation with Jean's wonderful insights into travel and, of course, her thoughts on being bold. With that, please enjoy this conversation with Jean Thompson. Why don't you start by telling me what your favorite chocolate bar is, what your favorite flavor is?
My favorite flavor right now is our JCOCO 80% cacao.
Ooh.
It's a
just straight up, nothing fancy in there.
And it's brand new, and its origin from Nicaragua. And we had it made to our specifications and our flavor preferences down by a company in Portland. So the Portland Chocolate Company and the Seattle Chocolate Company collaborated on that.
How does that work? That you can create, you can take the same beans but create a different flavor from it.
It's unbelievably complex. It's one of the things that's a bit of a mission for our company right now, is to educate people on how complex and how interesting chocolate is. So there's all these different varietals, just like in the world of wine. So you've got, and they're not even named in the world of cocoa, but just like Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon, there's that same sort of thing happening in cacao, where the pods and the beans and everything look and taste different. The beans kind of look the same, but they taste different. And so there's the varietal that impacts the flavor profile, and then there's the post-harvest processing.
Oh, tell me that, because that's what I'm interested in. Because I knew that it depends on the region, and that's going to affect it. But I didn't know that there would be a lot of variation in the processing.
Oh, it's so I've been told about a third of it is from the species, the varietal. About a third of it is from how it's a post-harvest process. So how long it is fermented. And there's, all the science and, what the pH and what the sugar content and everything is, and how long you leave it fermenting will determine the flavor profile. There's also a drying process after the fermentation, also can be varied, so that'll impact the flavor profile. And then finally, how it's processed from the bean to chocolate, how long it's roasted, how long it's, all those other things. So there's 3 major contributors to the flavor profile. And then we get the chocolate and turn it into a confection. And there again, have an opportunity to add spices or ingredients and make it milk or with a white center and all these other things. So there's just so much variety. That's probably why no 2 dark chocolate bars taste the same to anybody.
Okay. I didn't realize that. And you said your favorite is the 80% from Nicaragua.
Yes.
It is. Yum. Yeah. That sounds delicious. I just got, and listeners will know this, I just got a set of blood tests done. And it was a really, really in-depth thing. And it was from a sports nutritionist. And the thing that he recommended for me was 1 to 2 ounces of dark chocolate a day.
Love it. I think that should be for everyone.
Well, I know, but you know what's funny? It's different when it's just coming across the news and they're saying, oh, you've got to go have dark chocolate, how good it is. But then when you have somebody who analyzes your blood and then gives you that recommendation, it's like, okay, well, it's not just a frivolous kind of thing, but there's real health properties to
Absolutely.
it. So I'll check that out.
Yeah,
So
chocolate's very high in, it has protein. It has a good healthy heart healthy fat, and it's carbohydrate and sugar and all those other things that a woman's body really needs. Also has fiber. It's really actually, and then of course all the antioxidants that it's famous for.
As long as you can control yourself to 1 to 2 ounces a day.
But actually, that's a lot of chocolate. So that chocolate that I gave you, if you open up the JCOCO, each one of those is 1 ounce.
Oh, okay.
And I'm telling you, you're completely satisfied.
I know. I can't say that I've had a difficult time with eating 2 ounces a day, but I'm very aware of the fact that 2 ounces is a lot.
It's kind of a lot, actually. I mean, you're so lucky.
Yeah, I guess I am. Yeah.
I do that anyway, even though it wasn't prescribed.
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants the reference to that sports nutritionist, and maybe they'll get the same.
I'll take it.
They'll get the
I'm
same
hoping
response.
he's going to give me the same.
I know.
He probably won't.
That would be great. So let's start with, or I should say, let's go into your current title and your role with Seattle Chocolates.
Yeah, so I'm the owner, and I've chosen to give myself the role of CEO, and I've been running the company for the last 16 years. So
how did you come about? Because Seattle Chocolate started prior to you joining. Mm-hmm. So how did you drop in? How many years into its history did you drop in?
About 10 years in. So I was initially one of maybe a dozen investors in the early 90s. The company was pretty new. And then in 2001, the Nisqually quake in Seattle damaged exactly one building, and it was the building that Seattle Chocolates was renting. And so at that point, the company really either was going to go out of business or somebody was going to have to put in a significant amount of money to retrofit a building with air conditioning and insulation and move all the machinery. And so that was me.
Where was that building?
That was just across the street from Starbucks headquarters. A little brick building.
So down in Sodo?
Yeah, Sodo.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Is the building still there?
No, it was condemned. It was completely knocked down. We still have a few bricks as a memory from it.
Yeah.
And so then we moved. And at that point, I became the majority owner of the company. So the next year when my daughter went
sorry to interrupt you there, but so you became the majority owner. Why? Because other investors didn't
step up.
Okay.
So at first everybody was kind of, equal proportions. And then when I invested to move the company to a new location, a lot, then I became the majority owner. And other people just backed out and said, okay, you know what, you're the owner now.
And were you working at that time?
No. I was just an investor, like an angel investor in the company. And I was actually at home with my kids. And then the next year, my daughter went off to kindergarten and the company was still floundering and unable to cover payroll and just really struggling. So I decided, well, maybe I can help them with marketing and sales, which was my background. I used to work at Microsoft in marketing, and high tech in marketing was really my background. Then within a few weeks of me helping them out, which I thought was going to be part-time, just when my little kindergartner was in school, this was my vision, the guy quit who was running the company at the time because I was the owner. So it was difficult for me it was just a formula for disaster. As I'm like, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And he's like, really? It was irritating, I think. So he just quit. And then I was faced with the really important decision on, what do I do? Do I hire a CEO? Do I sell the company? It really wasn't worth very much at that point. They had so much debt from so many things that had happened in their history. So I said, well, I really love the product and I am the target audience. And I feel like I see what the industry is doing wrong at this point. They're all, it seems like they're all marketing as if chocolate is a gift that you wait for a man to give you. And I knew that wasn't how I was eating chocolate or any of my friends. And it occurred to me, they're really missing the mark. And nobody's, I guess, really targeting to women. They're kind of just, this is chocolate, it's a gift.
Would you say that that's true across the board or in chocolate companies in the Seattle area?
Oh, no, it wasn't Seattle chocolate.
Across
Seattle chocolate companies.
Right, it was just across
the board on the grocery shelves. You could see it. The ads that people were doing were women in negligees waiting for the gift to come kind of thing. And we were like, what? Well, that makes no sense. That's not how people are eating chocolate. So I thought, I think we can do it differently and probably better. And there was a tremendous amount of potential in those machines. So I thought, I think I can do this. I had no right to think that, it turns out, but I figured it out over the course of 16 years.
Ignorance is bliss, isn't it?
Ignorance is bliss.
Because if you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
So it was just the passion for it. Would you say that you had a passion for chocolate when you first invested, or did you just have a friend who said, hey, I'm looking for an investor. I think I've got a company here that's viable?
Absolute passion for chocolate. I think I've eaten chocolate every day of my life as soon as my mother let me. Every day of my life. I just love it. It is my go-to snack still. So it was a passion for the product, and it wasn't necessarily a passion for the company, but I love that product, and this seems like a good investment because I thought the machines had a tremendous amount of potential.
The machines meaning everything that's processing it.
The manufacturing equipment.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though you didn't know anything about it.
No, I didn't know the specifics, but they were very powerful.
Yeah, you just knew that.
They're still very powerful.
Did they, was there damage to the machines?
No.
So you were able to move the machines and get everything up and running.
Yeah.
Again.
The pipes that have the chocolate in them froze because they lost their heat when the electricity went out. So those all had to be replaced. So there was a significant amount of damage to the whole operation, but the machines themselves did not receive any damage. So we were able to move them and be operational pretty quickly.
What's pretty quickly? Months?
No, I think it was probably 6 or 7 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it was impressive. I actually didn't do it. I have to give credit to the person who was the CEO. He put the hard hat on and moved everything and got it operational again.
Yeah. I bet he regrets his decision.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows?
Yeah.
No, I know. It would be a totally different environment or company if he hadn't left. But you always wonder about that. So you mentioned that, so you were at home with your kids just prior to taking on the role of CEO, owner. And then, but you were also at Microsoft. You did some technology work. Let's go back to your background. You grew up on the East Coast. Is that right?
Yes. I, born in New York, raised in Connecticut, went to college in Maine. And then right out of college, got a job in, a digitizer company. So like the Microsoft mouse, it was another company that made mice and other digitizers. And I was in sales support.
Not IBM, was it?
No, it was
Weren't they the first ones who
I don't know.
I think they created it. Was it IBM? Xerox, maybe. I think it was Xerox.
Oh, they were the whole graphical user interface.
They created the first one, and they didn't think it was going to go anywhere. If I've got my story right.
Sounds right.
I think they created the first one, didn't think it was going to go anywhere, and then abandoned it.
Yeah. So again, I wonder if there are any regrets.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was in sales support, which is an entry level position, and moved into marketing, and then moved to sales. And then I moved to the West Coast and worked for a startup company that did...
In Seattle?
This was now in Menlo Park, California. And they were doing like SQL, structured query language database systems. And I was the only non-technical person at the company. I did all their marketing and sales and PR and everything. And then Microsoft recruited my now ex-husband, and I followed him a month later and worked at Microsoft for about 4 years.
Did you like Microsoft?
I loved Microsoft.
You did? Why?
Well, we had a lot of autonomy and responsibility in those days. This is in 87. So a really different company. I was like the 2000th employee. So, we had huge budgets and a lot of responsibility, and everybody was young, and there was so much.
A lot of energy. Yeah.
A lot of energy, startup. A lot of innovation. It felt very startup-y, even though it was probably 10 years old already by that point. Great place. I learned so much. The people were incredible. Loved it. Yeah.
And then you left to have kids and to be a stay-at-home mom?
Yeah, exactly. So I had a child, went back to work a few months and said, well, who cares about Excel advertising now? It makes no difference in the world. All that matters is my son, right? So I ended up quitting and staying home for about 9 years. And then, as I said, when my daughter went off to kindergarten, I started at Seattle Chocolate.
Good timing.
Yeah, it was good.
That is great. And you said now, I believe when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that, is it your son who's in Tokyo?
Yeah.
Do you get to visit him often?
He just moved there about 6 months ago, and he's a programmer for kind of a startup over there. He spent a year there when he graduated from college and fell in love with the culture and the language, and he's so happy, and I'm going to visit him in probably September for the first time since he left.
And do you think that you'll go and try to source green matcha tea or something?
That's such a good idea. I hadn't thought of it.
Well, there you go.
Make a business trip out of it.
Exactly. I'm always looking for those opportunities.
Well, it's funny because it actually is a business trip that I'm working around, because just a quick story because it's fun. Boeing made the 787 jet was the first jet that they ever sourced the wings outside of the United States, and they sourced them from Nagoya, Japan. And so when the first 787 came off the line, they gifted that jet to Nagoya. And so the Japanese have built an entire museum, they call it the Seattle Pavilion, around this jet. And it's opening in September, and they came to Seattle a couple of years ago looking for other vendors so they could create a whole sort of mini Seattle there.
No kidding.
And so Seattle Chocolate and JCOCO both are going to be products in their store there. So that's why I'm going for their grand opening.
Oh, that sounds great.
So I did figure out how to make a business trip out of it.
Of course, yeah. So will you go and actually have a little booth there? Do you mean it's
a store? They offered me a store, and I said I can't do that from Seattle. It's too far. But we're going to have a couple of what would I call them, etagers in a little retail store that's in the pavilion.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Wow, is that open to the public?
And that'll be open to the public
for how long?
Forever. It's like a forever thing.
I see. So you'll go for the opening.
I'm there for the opening.
And then it's, I have to go back. I was just talking to John, my husband, about going to Japan again. We were there a couple of years ago. And it is fascinating. You'll love it. So if you can bake in some extra time.
Oh, I will. To visit with my boy.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Is he in Tokyo?
He's in Tokyo.
Incredible city.
He loves it.
Crazy.
Loves it. It is, yeah.
Crazy. Incredible. Yeah. So you grew up on the East Coast. What kind of environment? Siblings? What did your parents do?
So my parents, who will be celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary in a month.
No kidding.
Still married, yeah. My father was high tech, and I also mentioned that he is sort of now is an entrepreneur. He's still at 81 years old, running a tennis club down in Newport Beach, California, and lives in Washington here. So he does it part-time.
Good for him.
And I have 3 siblings. So I'm the second born. It's boy, girl. I have a brother who's 15 months older than me, and then a brother and a sister that are 5 and 7 years younger than me. My sister lives local here in Bellevue. And then my brother, one is in Connecticut and one is in California.
So kind of spread out.
Yeah, we spread out.
So you said your dad's in...
Yeah, so my parents live here in Medina. They moved here probably 22 years ago.
And he's still keeping busy.
Yeah, he just will work till he dies.
Is his secret chocolate?
He doesn't have the sweet tooth. He's more a bacon kind of guy. Yeah.
And still...
And
I know, still at 80 something.
Yeah, exactly.
He's eating his bacon. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I know. I'm more and more convinced that there's no secret to aging. I think you can just feel better every day in whatever capacity that is. But you hear these stories about 100-year-old people who are, this 100-year-old woman doing a shot of whiskey every day or whatever it is,
But if you did it, you would have been dead at 40, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I know. Well, that's what the news would have you to believe, at least. So I don't know what the answer is. So something that I read about you online, and I want to see if this is true, and then I want to hear your take on it and kind of hear what this all means. It said that you have a mind that is all about constant learning and an ornery streak that kept you going even during bleak times.
Sounds like it was written by somebody else. No kidding.
Yeah. No, that was written It was in an article that I
that's a
read
good
about
one.
you.
I
Yeah.
like
Is
it.
it true?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely, I will stop working the day that I stop learning, right? And then I'll start traveling or doing something where I have another source of learning. By that, I mean that I don't think I would enjoy a job where it was the same thing day in and day out. No 2 days in 16 years have been the same at Seattle Chocolate. And then the people are different, and it makes it so that I'm constantly learning. There's always new challenges and obstacles that I have to figure out.
What kind of challenges and obstacles? Because I would think because I know you just went through a rebranding. So I would think that except for big changes like that you're going to go into an office, you're going to look at your spreadsheets, you're going to figure out your profit margins, you're going to figure out kind of what's working. But beyond that, what changes on a daily basis?
Well, the world changes, right? So when I first started 16 years ago, my target audience was very much like me. Well, now it's not like me at all. That person is, younger and has been influenced by social media very differently, looks for their information very differently, walks into a store with their, laptop or their pad or their phone open to do competitive research, may or may not buy there, or might buy online.
But chocolates?
It's different. I'm kind of a skeptic about chocolates online too, because I feel like, well, it's a spontaneous purchase. So I do think we're a little buffered from that, but still, they're shopping.
There's still that
if they're not
mentality.
going to the store, they don't have that spontaneous opportunity to throw the chocolate in the cart. Right. So it changes everybody's buying habits. I also think that they look at the companies that they buy whatever product from with a microscope. Like, what do they do? What do they believe in? Who are the people? Are they good people? What are their practices towards the environment? They want to know everything.
Because the information is there.
Because it's there. So the world has really changed a lot. So you have to change. Right. Also, the competitive landscape has changed a ton. It's not that hard to get into the chocolate business. You can use a marble table at home and have a bar. Yes, you can't go widely distributed for quite a while, but you can have a competitor that could end up on the local shelf competing with me. And so there's hundreds of, decent chocolate companies. All of them have a pretty tasty chocolate or product that somebody likes or somebody has loyalty to. So it's pretty fragmented, very competitive. So what are you going to do to stay relevant? What are you going to do to stay a trend leader? You have to think about that every day.
How do you do that? How do you stay on top of that?
That's hard. That's my job, right? So everybody else just does what they're supposed to be doing, and I have this sort of nebulous assignment of what do we do to get to the next level.
Is that research? Maybe it's all of the above, but in my mind, it would be research. It would be going into the Costco's and going into the big box stores and the small chains and looking to see who's on the shelves and who's being featured, doing online research to find out what other companies are out there, looking at who's being featured on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's all of that.
It is all of the above. You certainly need to know the competitive climate. Who seems to be getting the end caps? Who seems to be always on sale? Who seems to be elevated? Who are people blogging about or liking on Facebook and all of that, kind of getting a feel. So the research is out there now. You don't even have to pay for it, right? So that's nice. You just have to have people that do the work for you because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is.
But
it's very time consuming.
Very time consuming, but it's all there. So that's great. 20 years ago, we didn't know where to start. We're doing focus groups and, you're lucky if you get the right 10 people in the room. So the good news is the information's all there. The hard part is how do you, distill that? And a lot of it really comes down to instinct for me. So I have people that are doing that research and we have those people on our radar, the competitors and the products that we like or don't like. And then at the end of the day, it's like what feels right. That's how I've always run the company.
How do other people in your company respond to that?
The feel right thing?
Yeah, because I can imagine it's like, come on, Jean.
It can be very irritating.
Yeah, well, right. Like, show me the data.
Yeah.
Because I'm not feeling what you're feeling, kind of thing.
There's certain people in different departments, so the operationally minded people, their personality is more analytical. They're going to want data. They're going to want to see proof of things. They're not the risk takers. They keep me balanced. Thank goodness for them. And then there's people that are right there with, let's do it, with the wind streaming in their hair. And it's a balance of those people that keep me going. So I'll know the people that I need to run an idea by because they're going to be skeptical. And I want to make sure I hear it.
You don't run from them.
No, they're a valued part of my team. But I'm sure I drive them insane. And yet, they're still with me. So there must be just a little bit of adrenaline that they get when it is successful. And then when we make a mistake, thank goodness they don't say, we told you so. They just go, okay,
Yeah, let's
It's her
just
company.
switch.
She wanted to do it,
Yeah.
and we've learned something, right? Learn from it, and then it was worth doing.
How many people are in the company? You have an office in Tukwila.
Yeah,
and that's the manufacturing, and that's everything.
Yeah,
how many people are in that building?
About 75.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Did you ever think when your daughter was 11 years old that you would be overseeing an organization that had 75 people in it?
No, I never dreamt. At the time when I took it over, it was about probably 30 people.
Okay, that's still a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, because to run a manufacturing facility, you need to have a certain number of people. About probably 25 of the 75 are, they work on the line. They put the boxes together. They're in assembly. They work in the machines or shipping or the kitchen, so.
What do you think that your personal talents are to be able to oversee 30 people or 75 people? How old were you when you took down that position?
42.
Okay. So seasoned. You're not a 20-something.
No.
Right?
I think it helped a lot.
Yeah. So what skills do you think that you have that you brought to the table that you said, okay, I can step into this? Because I can't imagine that for myself. That's why I ask.
Yeah.
I can't imagine overseeing that many people.
I guess the skills are kind of the ones that are just born in you. I think that I have, I'm a good listener. I have a high degree of empathy. My vice president of marketing.
But that can make you go sideways too.
It can.
Because then you can think, oh, this person's tugging me this way and this person's telling me this thing and I understand everybody.
Okay, so then coupled with, I'm very opinionated. Like I have really strong opinions on what's right and what's wrong, and I make fast decisions. That's when I go to see the people that are more analytical, like, okay, call me off the edge here, people, because I'm about to jump. So that's a good combination. But I think I have a unique skill set. A lot of it came from motherhood too. Right. Really, I know what I was going to say. My vice president of marketing thinks that I have like some weird psychic power because we'll sit in a room. She'll be in the room the whole time and I'll be like, do you see how upset that person was over there? And she's like, no. I'm like, oh yeah, no, there was some body language going on. So I read people. And again, that is a double-edged sword because I'm like, wow, it's like they're screaming at me and they haven't said a word. So then I have to go in and say, what were you so upset about? They're like, well, what are you talking about? I never said a word. I'm like, well, I read it. So that's been a great and helpful skill. And caring what people think. Because at the end of the day, I feel kind of responsible for them. Like the people that work for me have to have a happy work environment, right? Because then they're going to be happy people. Then they're going to do their best work. And then my company is going to be successful. So while it sounded very altruistic at the beginning of the sentence, at the end of the day, it's really what's best for the company.
Tell me about the growth of the company. So when you started, as you said, there were 30 people or so there, and it's grown to 75. What was that all a straight uphill shot to success, or were there bleak times? Is that
oh, totally? There were bleak times,
as that quote said.
Oh, the ornery.
Yeah, the ornery kept going even during the bleak times.
And I would interpret that ornery remark to be like, I'm not willing to fail. I'm not willing to have anybody see me as a failure. Like that kept me going many a time, even when I started, and people were skeptical. What's this housewife going to do to, literally somebody said that. And I'm like, that was just rocket fuel for me. Like, really? So that's the ornery streak. But yeah, we had a lot. It wasn't a straight, nice trajectory, even line. Like, I'm sure nobody has that. So I always used to say, so it was one step forward, two steps back. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It was, you'd lose a big customer after you just found another 3. So it was really hard to get ahead. And I think that the distribution and getting the product in sales on the shelves is the hardest part of the job and continues to be the most challenging part of the job. But then also...
you have a sales team who handles all of that,
I have a
right?
great sales team, not that big. And then we rely on broker reps. So in different regions around the country, we have people that focus on our product and, maybe 20 other products, right? But they're calling on the retailer and know which retailers in their region are important. So we depend on that. Otherwise, I mean, that model of having somebody in every state or every city is just for the super big guys. Nobody can afford that.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you have presence across the country, as you said? Mm-hmm. Do you have another? Obviously, Seattle's got to be your biggest pocket, yes. Right? Your biggest presence.
The Northwest.
Right. Do you have other areas that are really big for you that maybe are surprising?
The other areas we have a pretty good presence in New York, like New England, New York. People really, our products resonate with them. So the coast.
Because we're like foreign and exotic, and there's there's this place out there, out west, the Wild West out there. So that could be something.
Well, and I think Seattle's pretty cool right now. So this is a trend that's helping us. Is that when people think of Seattle, they think of innovation, they think of natural, they think of outdoorsy, they think of smart people. whether it's, Amazon or Microsoft or whatever, these people, Starbucks, really help when your name is Seattle Chocolate. It helps. So when you're in New York, people, they think, well, that's a cool city. What does their chocolate taste like? So we've actually taken that with this new rebranding that you referenced earlier. We're trying to really embed the Northwest in everything that we do, in the look and the design, in the flavors that we choose to develop. And because our feeling is, A, it'll resonate with our people that are here in the Northwest, and B, when we go to other regions, we're representing the Northwest with our product.
When you talk about how Seattle is perceived right now, because you've been here a long time, and I've been here for 28 years myself. I've been here a long time from New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
In fact, yep. So East Coast also. Do you think, or how do you think that perception has changed in the last 15, 20 years? I mean, I know that when you came to Seattle 20, 30 years ago, you were granola, then you were grunge, and now it is very high techy. But it's hard for me because I'm so embedded in Seattle, and I know what Seattle used to be like. My heart kind of breaks. And I know that there's 1,000 people a month coming into Seattle, one of the fastest growing cities, that kind of thing. Do you think that that is being felt or being seen on the outside, that people are looking in and they're seeing this as a place on the map now?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a very innovative place, Seattle. And when people innovate, other people watch. And so they're innovative in the world of culinary. I should say they, because I've been here for 31 years. We are innovative in culinary. We're innovative in music. We're innovative in art. We're innovative in just high tech for sure. That's obvious. But even chocolate. I mean, we kind of have a reputation. People know the local chocolate companies nationally. Microbreweries, and you name it. I mean, Seattle is there in any of the trends that are going on, setting the trend, and has wine, right?
Right, with Woodinville, right? Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, I guess I see it as less creative than it was years ago.
Because of the high tech, maybe?
Yeah, maybe because of the high tech. Maybe because and not like high tech is very creative, absolutely. Yeah. But what I'm seeing is a lot of money coming in from young people doing technical things. And I'm not seeing what I hear is that the arts are failing, that the theaters are shutting down. We don't have as strong of a music scene that we used to. I think the culinary scene is strong. I think we've got, between Tom Douglas and some other big chefs in the area, I think there is that. But it's good for me. I'm just talking this all out because it's good for me to hear your perception of it and what you think other people are perceiving.
Well, I feel like when I first moved here 30 years ago and, didn't know very many people here, but whenever I would travel, people would say, where are you from? Seattle, they never even heard of it. I'd be like, well, it's just south of Vancouver. Or they think it was Washington, D.C.
Oh, I know.
Right?
Yep.
So now people know it. So it's on the map for whatever reason. And maybe, as it gets bigger, the creative part of it seems to be diluted. But I'm a member of an organization that's called Entrepreneur Organization. And there's, 12,000 members globally. And we have, it's hugely growing in Seattle. So there's 180 members. We're one of the biggest chapters in the world. And when I started, it was probably 80 people. So in the last 10 years, we've gone from 80 to 180, and there's a vetting process, and you have to qualify. So I feel like there's a ton of entrepreneurship. Maybe that's where the creativity feels to me very vibrant.
Right, and you're entrenched in it too, which is great. And I do see, in terms of the travel industry, I've always felt that there's a really strong hub here, and that's my world. So I'm seeing that it's a jumping off point to Asia and so many other places. So I could see that. One thing that you said was, when you got into that position, you said you didn't want to fail. Where did that come from? Where did that feeling come from?
Well, I mean, I've always been, I'm not a perfectionist by any stretch, but I've always been someone that's been sort of afraid to fail. I've always wanted to succeed and be good at every single thing that I did. I mean, it's a major character flaw. My mother used to be like, can you just go and have fun? Do you have to get an A? She said that when I went away to college. I don't want to hear you getting A's. You need to get some B's and C's and have some fun. So that's sort of how I was wired, right? Which is good.
So it wasn't pressure from your parents necessarily about being perfect.
No, because I have 3 siblings and they're not like that at all. It's just how I was born. That's how I'm wired. And I really don't when I was young, I didn't like being laughed at. I didn't ever want to be ridiculed. I never wanted to feel stupid. I was one of those young women that hesitated to raise my hand in college because what if it's a dumb question? And what if everybody else knows the answer to the question? Like all that stuff. And I've gotten so much better because of this job, really, and this opportunity that I've had. Now I'm like, well, if I have the question, it must be a good question. Like my confidence has just come around now that I'm in my 50s to know that, I'm just fine and I don't have to be perfect, and making mistakes and being vulnerable about it and admitting it is actually cool.
Is it conscious work that you've done to get there, or has it just been a natural progression since starting with this work and kind of having to deal with things on a daily basis and being wrong sometimes?
Like all the time, yeah. I feel like this gave me the opportunity to be wrong enough, but in a way that I was trying and I was doing the best I could, and I learned from it. I've read a lot of books about business and having to take those risks, and so I felt better about failing and doing mistakes, but I didn't set out to say I'm going to improve in this way. It just sort of happened just naturally.
Mm-hmm. Do you recall any of those books that you read that helped?
Oh gosh, I remember the first one I read was Good to Great, and finding the thing that you're really the best at. And I'm reading something called Self-Deception right now by, I can't remember who wrote it. And then Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. And I try to read as many of those books as I can.
Great. I'll link to those in the show notes.
One of my favorites, and I know everybody's read it, but it was a little bit of a tipping point for me, ironically, because that's the name of one of his other books, but Malcolm Gladwell. He wrote Blink. And I reference it all the time because that is 100% how I was running the business, was on my Blink. And I felt bad about that. I thought I should have some data. There should be some spreadsheets here. Otherwise, I'm really not maybe doing the right thing or the best thing. And after I read that book, I went, oh, there I am. I'm totally affirmed. I just follow my Blink and it's easy for me. And I guess I'm lucky. That was an important one.
So you were following your gut.
Naturally. Yeah. And when he gave me permission with that book that was, blockbuster, I went, yeah. Okay, I'm all right then.
So we talked about some of those bleak times and the fact that the company there's just not a straight trajectory, as there never is with companies.
No.
And it's really hard to realize that, or to think about that when you're in the middle of it. You think, oh, this is the beginning of the end.
Yes.
I'm putting words in your mouth.
No, you totally do. You're right.
But that's what we tend to do. Can you give an example of one of those bleak times and kind of how you got through it?
Well, I could give you mistakes, but the bleak time was really probably at the start of the recession.
So 2007, 2008.
And it started a little bit early for us. So I start to wonder if maybe we are a bit of an indicator, because we sell to retailers, lots of small retailers, big retailers, and when they start cutting back because they're not seeing the traffic, because people are holding onto their money or something's happening in the economy, we notice it right away. Like they're ordering less, or they're ordering less frequently, and our sales dropped. And then they stayed stagnant no matter what we did for 3 or 4 years. And it was so frustrating. And I started thinking to myself, I think it's just a broken business model. I just don't think that because of the world going to online, and I don't really think of chocolate, as we said earlier, as a big online product. I guess it's just the beginning of the end, or I haven't figured it out, or I'm just not the right person for the job, and there's probably someone smarter that could be doing better. All of that self-doubt was a daily challenge.
For years. Was
for
it for
years?
years? Oh,
for
that's
years.
Be
I was
tough.
just sure that I just could never get the secret sauce. I didn't know it. And I guess this is the ornery streak where it's like, well, but I'm going to keep trying, right? So, and then this EO that I mentioned that has like a group that you meet with monthly, I asked them one time, I said, so what do you think the right qualifications are for a person to run my company? And I did a little presentation on it, and they, in their own way, each of them said, by definition, it's your company, therefore you are the right person. Because you're setting the path that works for you and your company, therefore it's right. And I went, oh. So existential, but true, right? So that was a very big relief for me to know that I wasn't destroying the company.
So sales were stagnant for a few years, and then were you rebranding? Were you just trying different flavors?
Well, it's funny. I actually came out with JCOCO at the end of the recession. I went, everybody's like hunkering down and lowering their price, and I went, no, it's time for a premium product, because there's people out there that are looking still for, and it's still an affordable luxury, right? Chocolate. It's not like going on a trip. It's something you can do and treat yourself to when you're staying in. So we came up with a whole new brand that was uber high end.
What does JCOCO stand for?
So J is in Jean.
Okay, got it.
Cocoa
is
Cocoa.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. So the JCOCO brand launched at the end of the recession. which you didn't know it was the end of the recession anyway, right?
Nobody knew.
We don't know any of that stuff, but it was a good move. And you were appealing to a different.
Yeah, I thought, well, let's go after those people because they're a little bit more recession proof, right? Mm-hmm. They stop spending wildly because it looks conspicuous and they don't like the way it feels, but they still have their money. The rich still have their money in times like most of them.
And I don't know what the cost of a bar is, but I'm guessing it's probably closer to $7 or $8 as opposed to, so as opposed to $3 or $4 or whatever the other ones are. And they can walk into a grocery store and pick that up and not.
It's more limited distribution, JCOCO, because you have to go where that audience shops. Otherwise, it's just not going to turn and it's going to fail. And then the retailer's going to.
So are they in Nordstrom or where, when you say that
they're in, Whole Foods now, and QFC, which that is our biggest distribution, are those two stores. But they're and then in lots of little boutiques or wineries and that kind of thing. So a much more select audience. We're also nationally in Williams-Sonoma.
Oh, no kidding!
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was a really great win.
That is a good win. Yeah, absolutely. And did you say globally? Abroad,
I may have said globally, but I meant nationally.
Okay, good.
Thank you for correcting.
No.
Although we are in Marks and Spencer in London, which is one of my favorite stores, so that was a big win too.
That is a huge win.
They came to us.
Even better.
Yeah,
much better. So, how do you keep yourself motivated during that time? It's just telling yourself that just being tenacious.
Well, I think when you're not succeeding, you're very motivated. Right? It's discouraging, yes, but I guess I'm just not like a quitter, like, oh, I'm just going to abandon all this money I've put in and all this time I've put in. No, now it's like you have to hunker down and figure out how to do it better, how to do it different. So you start reading more books and you start talking to more people and you start trying to figure out what's going on. And then that's where I came up with JCOCO, right? So I was innovating and that kept the juices going too.
And then after that, you saw an increase in terms of the company in general?
Yeah.
Is that right?
So everything just got better.
Right. So everyone came out of the recession and they started buying chocolate again.
Yes.
And you were just poised. And I often think that it's just outlasting the competition sometimes. It's just being able to hang in there and not being deflated and throwing in the towel. But it's just kind of hanging in there. And if you can get through those rough times when other people are backing out and shutting down, probably.
The recession was a little bit of a cleanse. So all those people that were trying it out and maybe didn't have quite a good formula for what they were doing, they went out of business or they dropped away. That's all starting to build back, or has been now for years, building back up. So there's a ton of competition again, which is all good. I mean, there's room for everybody. But at that time, it kind of definitely diminished some of the numbers of competitors.
So when you look at going forward, maybe this is a trade secret, but how do you plan to grow?
Well, actually, it's all about just knocking down different distribution points. So for us, the big growth is going to be to go out geographically and really hit on other cities. Like we have some sales in Chicago and New York and, DC and other big cities, but there's tons of room for growth there. And there's a lot of retailers that are headquartered there. So we have a salesperson that started about a year ago. She's headquartered in New Hampshire, and she's really trying to take the Eastern Seaboard on for us. And we just hired a new vice president of sales who is from Unilever, 30 years of experience, and he is a go-getter. So I'm like, yes. And finally, I'm not in sales, which is nice. I mean, I'm always in sales, but I don't have to run it. So I'm very bullish. And then with this new rebranding of Seattle Chocolate, it's just exciting and new flavors. And I think we're so crystal clear in our branding strategy. And that helps because then people understand who you are.
How is it different than the previous branding?
Well, so we had the sort of geometric color palette going for 10 years. We had a bar design. And then we switched to kind of hiring local or American artists. And so each bar is a different design. And it's more of an artistic design rather than sort of just a geometric design. So it's a little more up to date, a little more trend setting again.
Right.
10 years ago, we were trend setting, and then we kind of got out of style. We also changed the footprint of our bar. So it stays 2.5 ounces because we don't think it needs to be a giant amount of chocolate.
It needs to be just over the amount that I need to eat.
So you have to leave a little behind. Sorry, you can share with your husband. Or a friend.
Yeah.
And so it's a little thinner, a little taller, and a little wider. And the reason we did that was that we do have to compete on the shelves. And so we heard time and time again and could see for ourselves that our little format was very often lost, just in a shadow kind of thing. And it's like, no, that's our only billboard at the end of the day. We can talk all day long, and if you're not happening to be on social media, you won't hear our message. But our little bar is our best little salesperson out there. So make it a little bit bigger. I also liked the thinner mouthfeel because the other one was quite like you took a bite. It was a substantial amount of chocolate.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
And this is a little bit more of a nice amount of chocolate per bite.
And then do you go out there with your messaging and like, where do you even start? Like, you calling up the newspapers and getting people on board to just let them know about the branding? So
we sent out 80 different press kits to people all over the country, and we sent sort of a sample of the bars and a really cute attention-getting box, and tell them pretty clearly that we are the Pacific Northwest chocolate, and here's what's different. Here's the new flavors, the hiker trail mix, and this new 72% Nicaragua origin bar. And then we call it Tukwila hazelnut because our headquarters are in Tukwila, which we found out is Duwamish, Native American for hazelnut.
Oh, okay.
So it's the hazelnut bar. The Tukwila hazelnut bar.
Which
nobody knows.
No one would know beyond the reservation. Right?
Exactly.
They would not know at all.
Right.
I actually knew about your rebranding because, thank goodness, your bars were on sale in Bartell.
Oh, yeah,
Bartell trucks.
So Bartell was a launch partner of ours. So we said, hey, they have 70 stores, and they always make quite a statement about chocolate. They're kind of a destination for chocolate and local. They love local. So they kind of fit nicely with us and have always been a great customer. So we said, we'll get great reach if you'll partner with us and have the product on the shelf on May 1st when we launch. And so they were all in, excited about doing it, and they decorated their end cap with our graphics.
Oh, good. Well, I just got back, I just got back from Ireland yesterday. And so before I left, I went, whenever I travel abroad, specifically, and it has to be a cooler climate. So not when I go to Vietnam or to Bali, but when I travel, I bring my Seattle chocolates.
Thank you.
Yeah, as gifts, and
they're great gifts.
and so I popped in to get some chocolates, and that's really I had known it was a woman-owned company, but I had kind of forgotten, and so I was going through all the chocolates and buying a big stack of them. Believe me, I just brought probably, I don't know if I brought 15 bars at least.
They're heavy.
Yeah, they were heavy. I came home with a lighter bag. So I had a bunch of bars, and I flipped it around, and it said woman owned. And I was like, oh, that's right. I've got to talk to Jean for the podcast. Yeah. And then I couldn't find them at Bartell's. And I had asked someone, I said, do you have any more Seattle chocolates? And they said, yeah, we might be getting them more in, but they're going through a rebranding. And I thought, okay, yep, that's what's going on.
Phasing out of the old, so they didn't get stuck with inventory. Yeah.
Right. Yep. So they were phasing out.
Smart.
Which was great for me because I got them on, bargain sale. But now I'm going to go back and restock, for my next trip.
And they're going to look different.
And they're going to look different. And they're going to be delicious. Have you changed the flavorings quite a bit? Or
most of the bars we kept the same because we have a loyal following. We didn't want to mess with our Pike Place espresso bar or San Juan Sea Salt bar. Those are, the big following. So they're just thinner, but they're still a truffle center. So it's just when we do new innovation, because we found that the San Juan Sea Salt and the Pike Place espresso sold better than other ones. So lo and behold, that natural sort of local, Northwest kind of flavor name did sell better. Resonated.
The coconut, I think, might be one of my favorites.
That one's good.
That's really good.
Yeah, that one is good.
Yeah, I know. Now everybody's putting the podcast on pause and running out to the store, hopefully to see if they can buy it. So you had mentioned something when we were chatting, because I'm really impressed with the fact that 16 years in, you are still bringing innovation and creativity to the position. And you said that every day is a different day. There's always something else going on, and you're having to constantly kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening. But you can still get, I don't know if it's burnt out, but the boredom can set in.
Totally.
You can be burnt out.
And
yes, definitely,
both.
If you're working a lot, but also boredom. So how do you just really keep that creativity going?
Well, I was just thinking about the latest thing. I think you have to innovate in new ways and think about how to disrupt, rather than it's not just like what new packaging, the sort of incremental creativity. That isn't going to disrupt things anymore, and you're not really going to be able to change the game. So it was years ago, maybe 3 years ago, somebody asked me the question. It was in a presentation. They said, how are you going to disrupt your industry? And it got me thinking, and I noodled on it for a while, and I decided, I think what would be great for the whole industry is if people would start giving chocolate as a hostess gift instead of always giving wine? Why don't they bring chocolate? It just made me think about that fundamentally. So came back to the office, brainstormed with my people, like, what would you do? And we came up with some sort of, very evolutionary sort of incremental changes. I'm like, yeah, that's not it. So I got thinking about it some more, and it occurred to me, I've got this great manufacturing facility in Tukwila, and I've never had opened up to the public because we were always covered with chocolate, or the machines were broken down. And I thought, no, again, my need to never have anybody criticize me probably was part of my problem. I can't have that, right? That's not good. And then I went, what the heck? So they see that it's hard, and they see that we're real, and that we're employing 35 people who, is contributing to the economy, 35 people that they can see from the tour. And so I decided to build out a viewing platform and a glass wall, because we're also safe quality food certified. Sure. You have to be careful.
Of course.
And so we did that maybe a year and a half ago, and we opened it up for tours. All this is part of how I'm staying innovative, right? Now people are coming in, and we have to set a curriculum for them. We put videos in place to teach them more about chocolate, because I'm trying to disrupt my industry now. So I'm like, okay, I can do this if I can get the people to me, and I can have a dialogue with them. Now, there's also the fringe benefit of I can learn from them. Like, what flavor do you like? Right, do you have any good ideas? Kind of thing.
Get the feedback.
Which is awesome. But I feel like we had such a good story to tell. Like, you didn't even know that, or you've forgotten that we were woman-owned. And a lot of people don't know that we're all about, stomping out hunger in the United States with our giving mission, and that we've given over 2.7 million servings of food through the sales of JCOCO in just the last 5 years. So, there's a lot of stuff that's a really good story that we do because we want to do the right thing, and no one knows about it. But by inviting them into our home and giving them a tour, which people will come, because who doesn't like to see how things are made?
Right.
Yep. People of all ages love that. Ask Mr. Rogers, right? I learned how Stradivarius was made when I was, my kids were young. And I was like, this is fascinating. People love it. So they come in, and then they finish in a tasting room where we can tell the story, and we can eventually build that out where we can educate people on chocolate. Taste this versus this versus this. And now, did you know this one was fermented this long? This one was dried that long. This one was, this species, this
so they
varietal.
can just see it, just like you described it early on when we were speaking.
And then they learn. And all of a sudden it's elevated.
And then they have an appreciation.
It isn't just a sugary snack anymore then. It's a food, which is really what it is.
Do people who come on the tour, are they Seattle area people, or are they from
both?
Okay, so they're from around, and how do they hear about your tour? Because I didn't even know you had a tour.
Yeah,
and now I want to come, of course.
That's the challenge, right? So getting the word out. I mean, it's only been open for a little bit over a year. So we were, I think, number 40 on TripAdvisor, best places to visit a year ago. And then we decided, because someone very creative in my company, that's another thing that's great, is when you surround yourself with creative people, everybody's more creative, and it's super collaborative, and it's fun and all of that. Someone on my marketing team said, we should do a haunted tour, because, kids and everybody loves to be scared. I actually don't, but most people love to be scared. So we did in October of last year, 2 weekends prior to Halloween, we decked out our factory made it scary, but it wasn't too scary. We kind of were motivated by like Disney's haunted house. It was kid friendly, and people loved it. It was really, really fun and really good.
So it probably brought in a lot of locals that time of year, right?
Yes,
in October.
That was locals. Went to number 8 on TripAdvisor, best places to visit in like a week. So we're like, must have events, must get attention, must let people know. So it's just a process, and we're slowly. We have an airport store, so we'll let people that are.
Where's the airport store?
Concourse C, kind of.
Clearly, I'm not spending enough time at Concourse C.
You're going to the International Concourse, I suspect.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that far from the whole food center court thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, we get a lot of visitors there, and it does really well because of our name, right? And so we're trying to tell people from out of town as they stop by there that we have it, because it's 2 or 3 miles from the airport.
When did you open the airport store?
About 2 years ago, and we just recently put a permanent space that was more light and more signage and that kind of thing in November.
That's a huge undertaking, isn't it? I mean, it's got to be. It's got to be an incredibly huge financial commitment.
Yes.
You can't just it's not like a pop-up store.
No, that was a big commitment, and it's an 8-year lease, and I'm just only hoping it can go longer now because
did you want to just
doing really well?
Oh, it is doing well.
Yeah.
Did you want to just all I can think of is I would just want to throw up, like even thinking about that.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, because that's huge.
Well, in the airport, because it's an airport, and so they have to think about security,
Yeah.
and they have this whole layer of other things that they have to deal with than any other retailer or facility that houses retail. They were delightful, but it is not easy
No.
to build something out there. I mean, every single thing has to be accounted for. You can't have like a screwdriver that's unaccounted for, right? So the overhead that they have for their contractors and their people is very intense.
But well worth it.
Oh, so worth it. Yeah. And they were delightful. So they helped as much as they could. Yeah.
Oof, can only imagine that's got to be tough. Do you have other standalone stores, did you say?
Just the one that's in the headquarters in Tukwila.
Okay.
Yeah, we did one in Bell Square for a while, but that's exhausting.
Yeah, it is. And again, just a really big commitment to do something like that.
Yeah. And, retail is kind of slow most of the time. So
Except in December.
Yeah. So not a great ROI for us.
So you touched upon this, but I would love to hear more details about it because I think it is such an important part of your story. The work that JCOCO is doing and how, is it each bar you donate $1, is it?
No, it's a serving of food. So it varies depending on, so we partner with Northwest Harvest here in our own backyard and Food Bank for New York City and San Francisco and Marin County food banks. And so each one of them, like Marin County and San Francisco, have great partnerships with farmers in Eastern California. And so this money that we donate to them will buy varying amounts of food that is kind of at the tail end, but still perfectly good. And they need cash to be able to reimburse the farmers. So we can get involved in that. And then in New York, it's a little bit different because they don't necessarily have the farmers so close by. So the cash goes to something else. So each program is a little bit different, but we're clear that what we're hoping to do, as much as they can do this, is to get fresh food. Because, a lot of the big manufacturers will donate cans and cereal and
noodles,
that kind of thing. But we want people to eat fresh food too. And our thinking was, we thought about what would we choose as our philanthropic give. And we thought about Dress for Success or something woman-oriented. And we decided at the end of the day, I sure as heck don't like being hungry.
Just people need to eat.
People need to eat. And 1 in 6 Americans is food challenged. And here we are, chocolate, which is really a food, right? And so we're eating chocolate and some people aren't eating lunch. Kids don't get to have lunch unless they're in school. And heartbreaking to me. So that to be able to move the needle on that has become central to our corporate mission. It isn't just, isn't that nice to have on the side? No, it's like we need to build 2 successful brands so that we can continue to get to 10 million servings of food and beyond. And then, I guess it's probably my age or where I've come to in my life is that's more important to me than anything I've ever done before.
Was it your idea to create that?
We knew we wanted to do something, and we did all this trial and error, contacted a lot of organizations, and then ultimately as a team, we kind of decided on it.
And so the decision to provide servings of food for people, you said, okay, let's feed people. And then you had to figure out how that was going to happen. And you realized that it was going to have to happen differently depending on who you were working with. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, because some of them don't like to be told it has to be fresh food. They're like, yeah, we can't. We're too big. We don't have the ability to do that. So you have to let them do their job. But what was nice about it is I don't have to become an expert in feeding people. That's what they do. Right. So just partner with them and give them a little extra money to work with.
And 2.7 million people in 5 years, you said.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's great. Feels really good.
Oh, I bet.
And this is something it's not me doing it. It's my customers doing it. So they're empowered in something that they were going to be doing anyway, eating chocolate, to help their neighbor at their time of need without having to pull out their pocketbook and write a check, which, sometimes is a little bit of a deterrent.
And it's a bonus too. It's when you make that purchase and you know that it's like you said earlier, people want more details. They want to know where their money's going, who's running the company, what they're doing to affect the environment. Yeah. Right.
They want the story. What's the story behind this brand? We all know the stories now. And because you vote with your pocketbook every day on what you choose to support, and it has to mean something to you. You have to be well aligned with the company you're buying things from.
What's the vision? You said 10 million.
Yeah.
Do you actually have a kind of a planned out that in X number of years
I think we'll get there in the next 3 years. Yeah. If all goes well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Knock wood, we don't have another recession.
Yeah. With interest rates and all that.
Well, I know. I think we're headed for something, but we'll have to see how that goes. Do you think that the new product will actually help you get into more stores? Do you think that there's always that excitement? It's weird. I go to this event. It happens twice a year. It used to be in Salt Lake City. It's an outdoor retailer show. And it's where companies come who do outdoor gear. It's everything from kayaks and canoes to running shoes to lifestyle shoes and climbing and clothes and everything. And when I would go to meet with these PR folks, they would always say, this, 6 months, the shows are 6 months apart. And they would say, well, our story this year is, and then they would tell you kind of this whole story. And I used to think it was really kind of weird that they were trying to pitch me on this story and everybody would talk about a story. But that's really what you have to do. You have to stay relevant. Yeah. You have to have a new story, don't you? Like with the rebranding. Yeah. So then you can go and send your media kits and inject new energy and creativity into the whole thing.
Well, it's kind of marketing basics.
I guess it is.
I mean, I'm not going to buy a brand, especially if it's new to me, if I don't know something about it. I mean, it's just not how the human behavior works, right? You want to fall in love with the brand. I mean, Nike, that's the importance of that just do it, right? It was like, oh, Nike is for people who are getting out and taking care of themselves one step at a time, right? That was the story. Mercedes, engineered like no other car in the world. Oh, no, I think that is Mercedes. So you now know something about it. Like, well, I care about engineering. I can align myself to their values. I mean, that's just how people buy. And it isn't like they're being fooled by anybody because you're only going to tell a story that is authentic or people are going to see right through it, by the way. Right. It's not like, Mercedes is well engineered. So it's believable. And I know that's what they stand for. So I know they'll innovate in that direction. And that's important to me. So I will buy that product. That's how it works. Yeah.
So now you've got a great new story.
Yeah, and it's the Northwest chocolate, right? We bring those flavors. We bring the wholesomeness and the taste and the foodie and the local ingredients and the beautiful packaging and art. And hopefully, art isn't dying in Seattle. That's sad to me. I'm going to go to an art museum today.
I know. Good. Yeah. I don't know. I was going to say maybe I misspoke about that, but I do hear about I hear about the theaters, that are just not doing well, that are really struggling.
The repertory is fabulous, by the way. I've had a season ticket there with a few friends, and we've enjoyed it immensely.
Good. Well, thanks for supporting the
Give
arts.
it a little plug right there.
I know, absolutely. That is great. A couple of things before we wrap up. This is the Be Bold podcast. What does it mean to you to be bold?
To take chances. To constantly be looking at something that might be a little scary. When we just went through this brand relaunch, I know a lot of my people were like, holy crap, what is she taking us through? And now they're so proud and so bought in and excited. It's taken the whole company, like we've sort of banded together. That was a big risk. That was expensive. I don't know if it's going to I still don't know if it's going to pan out, right? Because it just hit the shelves 3 days ago. But it was a risk that I felt I had to take. So you've got to be bold. If you sit back and you just sort of watch what everybody else is doing and wait for things to happen, you will lose and you will go out of business. So I think bold is kind of the new, it's a mandatory. It isn't like wow, you're really bold. If you're not bold, you won't win.
How do you tell a person, or how do you encourage a person, let's just take it outside of the business area, the business arena, to be bold? Because there's a lot of people, I mean, let's face it, the majority of people are not bold. They are, they're scared. The news is scaring them. Their health is scaring them. There are all these reasons why they shouldn't be doing something, why they shouldn't be traveling.
Yeah.
Just right. There's a lot of that. And it's because it is basically force fed to us over the TV, over whatever we're streaming, through the news cycle, through advertising. I mean, just look at pharmaceuticals, right?
Yeah.
Telling us how unhealthy we are. How do you be bold? I mean, really, how do you take the chance? Do you have a secret sauce for that?
Well, I guess I don't really listen to those things very much. I mean, I listen to NPR on my drive to work every day, hear the top line, and if it's interesting, I'll research it beyond. Otherwise, I don't want to hear it.
How long is your commute?
30 minutes. I get 30 minutes of news a day, and that's it. And so I kind of know what's going on, but then it's up to me if I find it interesting. But when they start getting into politics, I turn it off and I put music on. So I think maybe we do too much negative self-talk. So I think I would say find something that really is interesting to you. And don't worry about it so much. My parents just got back from Egypt, and they used to tell me every trip I went on, they were like, oh my God, that's so scary. It's not safe. Oh my God. I looked at the travel advisory, and I'm like, will you stop looking at the travel advisory? But
they went to Egypt.
They went to Egypt because they're now 80 and 81. And my mother, her response to people when they said that to her was, oh, so what if I get killed by a terrorist? I'm 80. And I'm like, that's finally what you should have been saying your whole life. You could have been on so many more interesting trips. They loved it. They had the time of their life. And I thought, wow, to have such fear. And we as Americans have more fear than anybody else. And guess what? It's really dangerous to go to school here in the United States now. Are you going to tell your kids not to go to school? It's legitimately dangerous. But is it really dangerous to go to Ireland or to go? No, it isn't. So just be careful. Don't be stupid or foolhardy, but take the chance. Do it. This life is short, right? You gotta have fun.
Hey, you're preaching to the choir.
I know.
With all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. But it's really hard. And I think I do a lot of women only tours, and I think many of the women who come on my tours, there's still a little bit of fear factor there with them, just because it's the unknown, and they're, getting their feet wet for the first time. But there are so many people who aren't out there traveling,
I know.
Who aren't out experimenting, or they're afraid. But these are people who are afraid of failure, as you've talked about for yourself, but they're also not willing to even try.
Yeah. Or they're
You've tried.
Or they're afraid of pain. They're afraid of discomfort. There's, travel is a little uncomfortable, right? There's times when you're not going to have air conditioning, and there might even be a bug in your bed, and you're just going to chalk it up to experience. Like, you have to really value that experience over your comfort. And some people, they don't. So they're not going to be bold. And that's their choice. And they may be perfectly happy with that. But if
I don't think they're happy.
I don't either.
Well,
they'd be happier if they had an adventure. And I think it's so important for our empathy towards other countries, towards other people, immigrants, whatever, to get out and see how, fabulous people in Peru are. And then you come home and you meet someone Peruvian and you're like, I know your country. They're really cool. And I know that you suffer here, or Costa Rica, you have no army. You learn so much by getting out in the world. And of course, I'm preaching to the travel choir here, but that's just an example.
And you've traveled yourself.
Yeah.
Have you been to Peru? You brought that up.
I have. I love Peru.
Do you
It's one of my favorites. I want to. Yeah, that's my next frontier.
Good.
I want to.
See, another write-off.
Like,
another
I can go back
trip.
to Peru.
Yeah, exactly.
Nicaragua is pretty cool too.
Where have you traveled? We didn't even get into that.
Oh my God,
Let's
I've
get
been
into
to
travel.
so many places.
Tell me.
Probably so I've been to China. I've been to Japan. I've been to Namibia. I've been to Tanzania. I climbed Kilimanjaro.
Oh, good.
That was a very be bold adventure for me and out of my comfort zone. And then I've been all over Europe, of course, and I've been to Tahiti, Bali, Australia, New Zealand. I've been very fortunate, been able to travel a lot.
Has a lot of that been independently on your own?
Yeah.
You've traveled?
Yes. Just most of it. Not by myself. I've always had a friend or a group of friends or husband or somebody that I've traveled with. I've only been on one trip by myself, and that was to New Zealand. And it wasn't as much fun as it would have been with somebody. Wasn't.
Yeah, it has. I'm a big solo travel advocate. A lot of my travels in my early years, particularly, it was solo travel. But I do, and part of it is because I have 3 siblings, 3 older brothers, but they're so much older than me that it was like I grew up on my
As an only
own.
child.
Yeah, so I'm used to being by myself.
Yeah, it's good for you.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I have really come to enjoy the company of others when I travel too, because there's that camaraderie. And for me, it's my sisterhood, because I'm with these groups of women, which is really great. So I understand when you talk about going to New Zealand, probably great experience, but
and I was proud of myself. It was that be bold, do something you've never done before, and know that you can do it. So if I have to do it again, I know I can, and I definitely enjoyed it. Check.
When you go to Japan, you'll be going with a group of people because it's a
my
business?
husband. Just my husband.
Oh, okay.
Oh, actually, I might be going with a couple of business colleagues. Yeah.
Sounds like a good trip for sure.
Yeah.
So we've covered travel. That's good. And definitely getting out and being bold in terms of that. Finally, where can people find you? Are you a social media person yourself, like personally?
I really pretty much just stick to Facebook, and I don't spend a lot of time on it, truthfully. You can find us, you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram.
So Seattle Chocolate
and JCOCO Chocolate, both of them. And I think they're connected to each other too. But Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can find us in a lot of retailers around here. That's pretty easy. But for sure, the new bars are at Bartell. They'll be at QFC. They'll be at Whole Foods. They'll be probably in a lot of different boutiques as well.
Great.
So they shouldn't be hard to find.
Well, good. Yeah, we'll get people hooked. We'll get them hooked on a chocolate bar, and then we'll have them go travel with it like I do.
Yes, and give it as a gift.
And give it as a gift because it's perfect.
We get that a lot because of the name, which is great.
Yeah, it is. It is quite perfect. So, Jean, thanks so much for your time today.
It's been so fun.
Thank
you, Beth.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, good. I'm going to go eat my chocolate now.
Me too.
I love her energy and enthusiasm for chocolate and really business in general. Really, I mean, she's taken something that she's totally passionate about and made it her life's work. And she's making lots of other people happy in the process, right? If you know someone who likes chocolate, please share this episode with them. Word of mouth is so important in helping build my audience, and I could not do it without your help. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to check out my tours at wandertours.com. I mentioned that I just returned from Ireland, but you can come hiking with me to Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania or on safari there as well, or perhaps India is more your style. We've got tours to both North and South India coming up in the next year. If you'd like to connect with me, you can friend me on Facebook, and I am WanderGal on Instagram. You can find out more about me by visiting wanderlustandlipstick.com. Sign up for my newsletter on the Wanderlust and Lipstick site, and you'll receive a series of tips for making your travels safer. You can find out show notes and more information also about the podcast at beboldpodcast.com. Ladies, you can join us on our Be Bold Facebook group. We've got nearly 2,600 members in that group, maybe over it at this point. It's a community of amazing women who are sharing their wins and sometimes their struggles. We're learning from each other. We're sharing some great information and encouraging each other as well. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Be Bold podcast. And until next time, be bold.